one game I actually forgot to mention that I didn't see at E3 was Final Fantasy 13 Versus. I actually looked for it and I didn't see it. Apparently, I'm an idiot because it was there. People told me it was there. But I have seen it. Sean Faust was actually very good to hook me up with a couple of trailers for it, and I believe at least one segment of gameplay footage. Um, Actually, you know what? I was very impressed with Final Fantasy 13 Versus. Um, for a lot of reasons. Actually, the it, I don't believe it actually follows the characters of the original 13 at all, which is good. Um, it really is one of the most graphically stunning trailers I've ever seen. Final Fantasy 13 stands as probably the benchmark, the high watermark for amazing graphics on the PS3. It really, as much as I give Final Fantasy 13 shit, it is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And Final Fantasy 13 Versus is no exception. If you see that trailer, I don't have it, but if you look for it, it's good. It is very good. And the reason I'm actually very enthusiastic about Versus because and this is going to sound silly, but the gameplay looks really good because the gameplay is not at all similar to 13 and 13.2 where you have the auto battle option, which I think is one of uh, the biggest mistakes ever programmed into a game. I know what they were going for with the paradigms, and actually I kind of dug it for a little while until I realized that the game's kind of playing itself at some point. With the auto battling. I can understand. I can understand that. There's a logic to it. Like, if you see a fire monster, it's weak to ice. So your characters are smart enough to realize this. So you push the button and they cast ice. I get that. I get the fact that they want to make the combat fast and fluid and responsive. And you only want to manage one character, and they don't want to slow it down in turn based and make you make the same obvious choice over and over and over again. Really, I understand this. I understand the auto battle concept. If there's a monster you face with a weakness, it's always going to have that weakness. So why not just have the characters cast that spell that exploits the weakness over and over again? Well, that's a good point. I mean, and I'm not sure how to rebut that, except for the fact that then why do you need me? It's kind of like why involve the player at all? I guess my argument there is don't remove the decision making from the player, make a better game. I'm probably not explaining as well as I should, but when it comes to the auto battling, I've just played so many games where there are tactics and there is thinking involved with turn-based strategy. And I keep going back to Persona 4 or any of the Persona games, really. Persona 3 and 4, where there is some significant decision making to be had, depending on what personas that you've unlocked and what characters you select. Your basic loadout for these things, and there's a lot of decision making to be had where you don't necessarily have to auto battle. Although, what's funny is in Persona, your characters do auto battle until you turn that option off. And you know what I usually do is I turn that option off. I just like having that control, and I don't think it makes a worse game being able to choose what your characters do and when they do it. It just kind of feels like the game is playing itself. But anyway, when it comes to 13 Versus, the combat looks surprisingly fast and fun, and it feels like you have input. And the reason why is because the combat looks and feels almost exactly like Kingdom Hearts. And I know I'm oversimplifying that fact, and I know you may think I'm saying that like it's a bad thing, but I'm not. In fact, it seems rather logical that this game kind of goes into an action RPG style of play. I wanted to see that kind of gameplay branch out into other storylines and other settings, and so it's actually very exciting to see what will become of Final Fantasy 13 Versus. And really, what I'm most excited about, and what I'm always excited about in any RPG, is the story. And where it comes down to it, probably my biggest disappointment, like the paradigms I could get over. I found it too easy. I found the paradigms. That was my big problem with the paradigms in 13 was it made the game too easy. All I had to do was just kind of watch. I had to, I made a paradigm where somebody tanked and drew damage, and whenever anybody got in trouble, I switched to a healing paradigm. So it was kind of offensive with a tank, heal until I'm out of trouble, go back to offensive with a tank. It really didn't even. I never broke a sweat. In fact, I barely had to look at the screen most times. And there's a problem when you can do that, when you just kind of fall into that same rut of doing that over and over again. And what really disappointed me with 13 was the story. The story was obtuse. It was hard to get into. It was hard to understand. It required reading on my part. And it was just poorly told. It was boring and poorly told. And if the story was good, one can forgive a lot. And I think that was my main complaint. And it's been my complaint with Final Fantasy for a long time, is that the stories are just poorly told. They're either annoying, they have annoying characters, people don't act like human beings, or the story is just so monolithic and indecipherable, it's impossible to relate to. And so, once again, I didn't really get an impression of the story of 13 Verses, but I'm hoping it's good, because I know they can tell good stories. They haven't in a while, but yeah, I felt I had to make this kind of postscript to the 13.2 review, just to explain my thinking, and to at least try to give like a more fair, less ragey analysis of what I'm going for, and the fact that I am not down on every Final Fantasy game, because I am looking forward to 13 Verses.